13 minutes before the top of the hour, America. As always, great to have you here with us. And right now on the phone is our good friend, Carl Gallups. He is the longtime senior pastor of Hickory Hammocks Baptist Church. Carl, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, doing well, Bill. Thank you for having me back. God bless you.
Oh, God bless you. It's, I am so excited. I really appreciate your heart, Carl, and I think this is why God's brought us together, is because here you are a pastor, and there's so many churches, unfortunately, today that aren't as bold as your church in terms of being able to put, what's happening out there in the public square to keep your people, aware of what's happening. Not only that, but you've got a very active internet site, a website, keeping people informed, because there's too many pastors today, for the sake of, losing their potential exemption, their tax exemption. They don't want to confront, what's happening in the world today.
Yeah. Well, it is a shame. There are many more of us out there, Bill. We don't want to get the Elijah complex, but
Yes.
you're right. Overall, many pastors are just afraid to speak to the issues of the day. And the problem is that the left, or the dark forces of evil, have co-opted biblical issues, turned them magically into political issues, then stuck their finger in our chest and dared us to speak to these issues. How dare you speak to political issues, separation of church and state? But,
right.
Israel is a biblical issue. The Middle East is a biblical issue. Homosexuality is a biblical issue. Abortion is a biblical issue. But see, they've co-opted these issues, Bill, and they say, no, these are political issues. How dare you get involved? But I beg to differ. The prophets of old went right up to the faces of the kings. They talked to them about the politics of the day, the wickedness of the day, and the biblical issues of the day. They tied them all together, and God used them. And I think you and I are the modern-day prophets that are charged to speak these things.
Well, Carl, just like you said, there's people in your orbit that are speaking the truth, and mine as well, and we're linking arms, and and that's been my prayer and passion, is that we'd link up more arms to realize there's more of us than them, and I'm not talking numerically, I'm just talking powerfully, because people right now are every once in a while, the idea is thrown around is that imagine a world without America. Well, imagine a world without the truth, and people who are passionately putting it up front so that people can say, look, I've been buying into a lie. And I believe that we're entering into a season, Carl, where the truth is going to be more pronounced, and it's going to be that much more dividing, because just like you have in your upcoming book, The Magic Man in the Sky, you're going to have to choose this day who you're going to serve. And the fact of the matter is too many, and I will say this in the church, because we've all bought into this. The church has become institutionalized, and we've bought into the wrong things, and we've gotten to the point where, just like even in the Republican Party, I was talking recently with one of our good friends who wrote the book Won't Get Fooled Again, Greg Jackson, is that we've compromised our values to such a degree to be in the Republican Party to get a seat at the table that there's no clear divide between, salt and light and the truth and a lie. We've compromised our principles to such a degree, and we've misrepresented the God to whom we say we serve. And, and I sit there and I'm looking and I'm seeing a light that was once bright flickering, and God forbid that it would be totally dimmed.
Right. Well, Bill, you're a brilliant commentary, brilliant expose on biblical truth you just presented, and the fact is, as you know, the Bible speaks of a time when truth will be thrown to the ground, and when the light will go out, because God will remove it. And if I understand my Bible correctly, and I know I'm not going to get into eschatology because there are many different interpretations, but of course, many believe the Bible speaks of a rapture of the church and God's people being taken out in the very, very last days. And can you imagine, Bill, a world without the gospel, without the church, without the Holy Spirit, without the conviction of the Holy Spirit, without the missions efforts and relief work and the love, the deep, deep love of God available to people through Jesus Christ? Can you imagine when that's gone, when the church is gone, when the people of God are gone, this world will be plunged into utter darkness. But as you said, right now, we are the salt, we are the light, the truth is still going out, it's going out powerfully, probably more powerfully than ever before with the advent of from one nation to the other in a few hours with the internet, with cell phone technology, et cetera, et cetera. The truth is going out. My book is just one little part of it. Your radio program and my radio program, another part of it. The internet access, that the big ministry I have on the internet with 21 million viewers, that's another part of it. But the truth is going out. But I think time's getting short. Bill, what do you think?
Well, I agree. I mean, there's no question about it, Carl. I mean, you see God's prophetic hour hand in place, and the minutes are ticking away. There's no doubt about it. And just like you said, the information's getting out there. I was encouraged. We mentioned a little bit off air, and you haven't had a chance to see it. But there is a video that has gone absolutely viral on the internet. It's called Coney 2012, and it's had over 42 million hits on it. And what that tells me, Carl, is that if people don't know the story on that, this is about a Ugandan warlord for 25 years, Carl. I mean, you talk about being in darkness. Well, you imagine what these people must feel like. There's no God. There's nothing to save him. This guy has absolutely gone, just over the top. I mean, he's murdered people. I mean, the crimes that this man has committed are beyond conscience. And that's what these people must have a sense of feeling like, is that, hey, there's nobody here. There's no God. I'm left. I mean, this is total tyranny and oppression to a level that we can't even imagine. But there must be, for 42 million to go and view this 30-minute video, Coney 12. Just go to YouTube and type in Coney, Kony 2012, and it'll come up. And it will blow you away. But the thing is I look at that and I sense the Spirit saying, people are mindful of this and they're responding to it because they have a sense of what is right. The challenge is, and this is where the church is needed, Carl, and this is where, I am so grateful to God that He's brought us together, because we need more people coming together, locking arms on the truth of the Bible, because we need to stand for that which is righteous, and we need to establish and promote and catapult a legacy to where we have generations of people that are standing shoulder to shoulder, back to back, totally sold out and in on the gospel of Christ, no compromise whatsoever. You're either all in or you're all out.
Well, absolutely, Bill, and that's my heart as well. And again, I believe that's why the Lord's put us together. And I'm telling you, my first obedience is to Jesus Christ and His kingdom. However, people ask me, why am I so passionately involved in the politics of our nation? And again, number one, politics and the Bible go together. But number two, I also recognize that the United States of America distinctly gives me and you the opportunity to do what we're doing. There are 64 nations of the world, Bill, where you and I would be imprisoned or put to death today for what we are speaking if we spoke this publicly. The United States of America and the First Amendment gives you and me the ability to do what we do. And brother, I see our Constitution going away. It is going away piece by piece before our eyes. I am very concerned about what has happened recently, Sheriff Arpaio's investigation revelation. It is, every newspaper headline right now should be reading extra, read all about it. The man in the White House is a fraud with a forged identification. But nobody is reporting this. One of the biggest constitutional travesties in the history of America, perhaps one of the biggest frauds ever perpetrated upon the world, is happening before our eyes, and very few people are speaking to it. There's breaking news, which people can read on my channel, that mainstream media people are now coming forward saying that they have quit their jobs over threats from federal authorities that if they reported on this, that bad things would happen to them and to their families. Bill, that is Soviet Union, that is Venezuela, that's Castro and Cuba. We're either going to be a constitutional republic or we're going to be a third world banana republic, and it's all going to happen, I'm afraid, in the next few months.
Well, there's no question. And Carl, I want to unfold that after the break, because we got into these other things. Because I want to focus on the fraud that's being perpetrated on the public. And to your point, how the U.S. Constitution continues to be violated. But our president, our second president, John Adams himself said that our Constitution does not work without a moral people. And as I shared with Governor Huckabee, who at the time was thinking about running for president, I told him, I said, Governor, with all due respect, you know as well as I do. I mean, we can talk about all these other issues, the economy and everything else, is that the root of this is a spiritual issue. Now, he could not respond to it because at the time he hadn't declared whether or not he was going to run, and I'm sure his handler said, look, if you make one more step toward the evangelicals, you're going to distance yourself from the independents. But, it comes down to this, Carl. Either we're going to trust God or not trust God. And,
right.
The fact of the matter is, and whether people want to believe it, and I will yell this to the top of the roof for as long as I'm able to, is that it is a spiritual issue. And, just like you cited, America has a birthright. I mean, why, of all the countries that God could have chosen, why did he choose America? And I believe there is a birthright and there's a specific purpose. And when when we're operating consistent with that right and that purpose that God's given us, it goes well. When we violate it, we're in trouble. And this is what's happening. I say to you, I go, how's that working for you? You want to look at it and say, hey, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? Well, 4 years ago, you keep moving further away from, our godly birthright.
Right. Well, another biblical observation along those lines of birthright, Bill, may very well be that the main reason God blessed us was to use us to produce, to bless, and to protect the nation of Israel.
Yes,
and
no doubt.
Whenever we walk away from that, we're gone.
Exactly. Well, it's 2 minutes before the top of the hour. Bill Martinez, we're visiting with Carl Gallups, and we got more, and we're going to break down the Joe Arpaio investigation and the fraud that has been perpetrated on the American people. Stay with us right after this.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it.
Bill Martinez Live, a program about current events, our culture, our values, our politics, and our future. Bill Martinez Live is an interactive program that includes news and policymakers, but most of all, your calls. You can join the conversation at 877-711-5611. And now, Bill Martinez.
You better stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going on. Stop. Hey.
Back with you at 6 minutes after the top of the hour. This is Bill Martinez Live. Hey, coming up a little bit later on, we've got Steve Deace with us, our good buddy, who is also a broadcaster. He's a nationally syndicated radio host and co-author with our good friend Greg Jackson, the book We Won't Get Fooled Again, Where the Christian Right Went Wrong and How to Make America Right Again. We're going to break down the GOP race. It's always good to have a pencil and paper when we talk to Steve because he moves so quick. But he'll break it down ever so clearly, and we're going to deal with, some of the host issues that America is faced with and how our Constitution has been compromised. And we're going to, that conversation is going to continue as well right now with Carl Gallup. It's a pleasure to have Carl with us. His latest book coming out here in May this year, The Magic Man in the Sky, Competently Defending the Christian Faith. And I'm excited for Carl and eager to get my hands on it. Of course, Carl is the senior pastor of Hickory Hammock Baptist Church. Carl, good to have you back with us.
Hey, thank you so much, Bill. It's my honor.
Hey, we touched on this a moment ago, and I wanted to, really have a little bit of time here to talk about, something that the elite media is not bringing up. I know they're probably shaking their head. Joe Arpaio is saying that there's probable cause and criminal involvement with both Obama birth certificate and selective service cards. So the way they broke it down, it looks like the documents are frauds.
Yeah, well, and I want to remind your audience, prior to being in the ministry for 30 years, for 10 years, I was a Florida law enforcement officer with several years of criminal investigations experience, and I've been involved in this Obama fraud case from the very beginning as a talk show host with a large national audience. I've interviewed all the big folks that are involved in it: Jerome Corsi, Joseph Farah, Orly Tate, etc., and Alan Keyes, etc. But the bottom line is, yes, it's looking like, from a purely law enforcement standpoint now, that there has been a tremendous fraud perpetrated upon our nation, and Sheriff Joe Arpaio says arrests are forthcoming. And also, if you watch that interview, and by the way, I have the whole hour and a half news conference on my site at carlgallups.com for people can see it if they haven't. If you watched it, Bill, you also heard him say that many, many more angles to this investigation are going to be investigated, that there were so many things that came up in the process of investigating the birth certificate that blew them away that they were not even able to speak to it at the conference, and they promised that deep investigations would continue. They said they had signed affidavits from high government official that he knows for a fact was standing in Bill Ayer's mom's front yard when his mom introduced this government official to a young black man some decades ago who was introduced as a foreign national student whom they were trying to educate in the United States, and his name was one Barack Obama. I mean, just it goes on and on and on. So this is horrible, Bill. I mean, what if we literally have a foreign invader usurper who knew he was not eligible to take that office, but who perpetrated a fraud knowingly upon the entirety of the United States, complicit with people from Congress and the court system that helped him gain the office to become the commander-in-chief of the largest, most powerful military and economic engine in the world for the purpose of its destruction. What if?
Exactly.
That's kind of the worst-case scenario, but the evidence is piling that way, Bill.
Well, it's amazing, as you say, Carl, the failure of, the media to vet, to vet this president. And here we are. I mean, he's near 4 years in office, and now he's going through the vetting process, and this is just part of the process. Let's go back. I mean, you were an investigative officer, so you know the process. Break down, explain to our audience the cold case posse, that it was more than Joe Arpaio. I mean, you had a lot of experts that were behind all this.
Yes, and I say to people who wish to simply castigate Joe Arpaio and impugn his character rather than deal with the facts, let me remind those people, if they're listening today, Joe Arpaio investigated nothing. I understand how this works. Again, I worked for 2 different sheriff's offices, several years in criminal investigations. Joe Arpaio is just the administrative constitutional officer who's charged with the responsibility of assembling that investigation. His fingerprints are nowhere on that investigation. He's made that clear. The investigators have made it clear. He assembled a 6-man team, 3 attorneys with criminal investigation experience, 3 law enforcement officers with criminal investigation experience. They employed the services of forensic laboratories, digital document experts, forensics, and a myriad of other folks. Took 6 months to investigate this at a sworn criminal investigation level. Came back to the public, presented an hour-and-a-half news conference showing every piece of evidence they had, and conclusively proved that the document is a forgery. Exactly. And it's amazing to me. They turned directly to impugning Joe Arpaio's character. What does his character have to do with it, Bill? It could have been a street hooker from New Jersey that presented the evidence. If the evidence is founded upon fact, what difference does it make who presented it? It was his responsibility to present it. He's the sheriff. But he didn't investigate it.
Well, Carl, touch on the quick points of how they determined that this was a fraudulent document.
Well, in many different ways. It had to do, in fact, I received an email yesterday, and this answers your question. I'm not going off topic. I received an email yesterday from a listener I do these interviews from coast to coast, and I had a listener email me yesterday and heard one of my interviews and said, you know what? I'm a 30-year document expert in Adobe systems, and he said, I am an absolute expert. I'm used by people all over the nation. He said, I heard your show. He said, I've got to tell you. He said, I used to be very turned off by the birthers, and when that certificate was released, he said, I heard one of your shows, and I heard you say I could get that certificate off the White House website. He said, I immediately went and got it. I opened it up, and this 30-year Adobe expert said in my email yesterday, Bill, he said, I was appalled at what I saw. He said, within 5 minutes, I determined it to be a forgery. He said, I could not believe that people were ignoring this. So what Arpaio did, he took that thing to a bunch of people like this guy that emailed me yesterday. And every single one of them said that the document was produced in layers. It was produced on a computer. It involved printing techniques one of them called kerning, that can only be done on a computer or with an actual hand-laid printing press. And of course, we know the document wasn't produced there. But that document 1960s IBM Selectric typewriter, which was used by the Hawaii Department of Health when Obama was born. It was forged. It's a fraudulent document produced on a computer, slung out. But I got to remind you, Bill, and your audience, for the several years before that document was presented, the Obama White House swore to us that no such document existed, that the only document they had was the short form that was on the Internet, and didn't we know that Hawaii didn't produce those long-form documents anymore, and we were stupid to even think they did. But when Jerome Corsi's book was coming out, which was already a #1 bestseller on Amazon, mysteriously, Obama produced a document that for 2.5 years, he said, didn't exist.
Didn't exist,
and
right.
now
exactly.
that we've had it examined by law enforcement, we understand why it didn't exist. Because there is no such document. The document he produced is a forgery, Bill.
Well, and like what Joe Arpaio is saying is that, I mean, this is criminal involvement, and to its highest, and it's going to be absolutely phenomenal. How what's going to come out of all this? And we've got about 45 seconds left here, Carl. What is the bottom line for our audience? I mean, they need to be prepared for something that could be rather shocking for America.
Yes, the bottom line is they need to be prepared.